Just a few hours ago, Joe Rogan dropped
Have
a
practice.
podcast with Alex Jones on it, which was surprising because when Rogan went over to Spotify, they dropped Alex Jones's episodes, if you remember, from his back catalog. They did not include those, and there was a lot of talk about whether or not he would be allowed to go in moving forward. Now, Rogan came out after all this big controversy of the Spotify employees are going to walk out unless they get more content control over what Rogan is doing. After that whole hubbub, Rogan came out and said, nobody from Spotify has talked to me. Nobody from management has talked to my managers. He's like, I have not heard from anybody. Nobody has said, you can do this guest, you can't do that guest. He said there has been zero communication with the Spotify people. Now, I believe him, but that doesn't mean that these conversations are not happening or taking place in Spotify.
They might be reaching out. I mean, maybe they're talking to Joe Rogan's representative about all this stuff. Who knows?
He said they
The
weren't.
representative would talk to him.
He said, I asked my managers if anybody from Spotify said anything to you, and they told him no.
Okay.
They could be lying to him, or they could just have, it could just all still be internal discussion from Spotify. But I find it interesting because we're just in this land of overreaction now. So people were upset that Alex Jones was on. I actually caught a bit of this podcast. I listened to it on my way back from the station. And I didn't get into too much. But, when you listen to Alex Jones, he goes 500 miles a minute. He's just sputtering out one thing after the next. And what I thought was interesting this time around was Rogan was actually stopping him to have him clarify some of the statements that he was making. Like at one point, he accused AT&T of donating money to Trump or something like that, whatever it was. And Rogan stopped him and made him go back. And it was a quick exchange that took 7 minutes to explain. And it turned out that what he was saying was actually true because he was able to cite an article and they found it. But I saw a more cautious Joe Rogan in this episode than I have ever seen before. And I don't know if it's because he's grown to such a status and sees what his podcast, the impact it has on everybody, or if it was because he was sat down and told, hey, you're now part of us and you got to be a little bit more responsible, again, because of your status and whatever.
Right.
Yeah, if you have a guy on like Alex Jones, you gotta be able to
Put him in his place.
Maybe a little, but you also have to keep up with him and also kind of nail him when he's talking crap, like bull crap. I mean, if you choose to have someone like that on, you can't just let them go wild and just give them a platform. It's got to be your show. You have to control the content. You have to control what, let him say what he's going to say, but also fact check him and put him, put him in his place when he's telling bullcrap, which I'm sure was most of it.
BuzzFeed News is reporting that Spotify chief legal officer and head of global affairs, Horacio Gutierrez, circulated a memo today to team managers defending the company's policy not to ban specific individuals from appearing on its podcast just because of their past commentary. Basically, supposedly there was an uproar because of Alex Jones, and Spotify's defense was, hey, we can we can stop and police what people say. We can't stop and police people. Meaning if Alex Jones said something that was not above water for them, they could take it down. But they're going with he was all good, and based on past stuff, we're not going to punish him. We're not going to ban people. We're just going to ban speech. Slippery slope. This isn't going to end well. I don't think that Joe Rogan sees his Spotify contract run out naturally.
You don't think so? How long is it?
It doesn't. I don't even think it's started yet, really.
Oh, jeez.
His podcasts are on there, but I think he goes exclusive January 1 or December, whatever.
Wow.
So
I think they would have hammered all this stuff out. He's got to know about most of this, right?
I don't think people saw the the regular workers, the office staff, getting upset. I don't think they saw that coming. Remember, it's not the manager and the owner of Spotify that cares. It's the office workers.
Yeah, I mean, but when you
Basically.
bring a kook on, you have to expect kooky talk. You know, it's not like they're bringing on a well-respected, you know, public speaker who's like
Right, like Trump.
Right.
I will
you
say,
bring on a kook, you're going to get kooky talk.
I will say, and again, I only listened to 20, 25 minutes, but you know me, I've kind of said I'm not really a fan of Alex Jones anymore. In the very, very beginning, he was interesting, and he kind of lost his way for me. But he was making this point by saying that, you know, Joe Biden accepts money from corporations and that President Trump doesn't. He also said that President Trump doesn't deal with lobbyists, which is actually untrue. But what he said was he made this really interesting point, which is that by Trump not, I want to make sure I say it right for what he said, by Trump not taking money from corporations, not taking lobbyist money, what has happened is he's inadvertently created a scenario where everybody around him is taking money. So by him refusing to take money from corporations, okay, fine, that's great. But now what happens is this staff member, that staff member, this secretary of whatever, they're all, now because the money is still there to be had, the influence still needs to be gotten. So they're going to all these people to put money in their hands to say, hey, can you mention this to the president? That's what Alex Jones was saying. Which I found to be pretty interesting because, you know, I could see how that sort of a vacuum would happen. And he said that AT&T gave $100 million or whatever, and they were able to pull up the article that cited just that. So it was an interesting episode. I mean, I'm not going to link it on ours, but you're not going to have any trouble finding Joe Rogan and Mr. Jones.